let's start our session for Let's Learn Git. Okay. So before starting the session, here is a quote. You are what you do, not what you say you will do. So generally we commit many things like I will do this, I will do that. Even at the time of joining, people or candidates say, so like the thing that we have experienced, candidates say that I will do this and I will do that. Even after joining, employees say that it will be done by this time, I will do this, I will do that. It does not matter what you say. The only thing matters is if you do it. So you are what you do, not what you say you will do. Okay? So let's learn Git. Okay, so first of all, where to find this presentation? You can find this presentation online. Okay, so let's learn Git. Okay, so first of all, where to find this presentation? Like this link is easy, sessions.thinkquick.com/git.html, but even that is a long URL to type. So there is a short link, bit.ly/tw-git. You can load it up in your browsers now also or in the future for references. Okay, so first of all, who am I? So my name is Sulay Sumaria, working as a senior project manager at ThinkQuick, and you can find me on all social media platforms by the name Sulay Sumaria. So it's my username almost everywhere, like 99% of places. Okay, so what is Git? So all the developers know what is Git, but for the other teams that who doesn't know what is Git. So Git is simply a version control system. So basically whatever code we write it daily, we make changes to it daily. So we need to keep track of what changes we are making. So Git is a tool that allows us to do that. One thing to know is Git is not the only version control system that is available. Git is also not the oldest one. There are other version control systems like SVN. Yeah. But Git is the most used, widely used. And the reason why it is widely used is because of GitHub. So people generally confuse between Git and GitHub. So like Git is a tool and GitHub is a platform that allows us to use Git effectively. There are some other uses of Git also, like I explained it, to keep the track of changes to code. The next point is synchronizes code between different people. So it can be possible, and generally it happens like many people, a team of people are working on a project. So we want the same code to work on all of them. Like one person can be working on one feature and another person can be working on another feature. So we need to like have combine those features and then ship to our clients. So this is where Git comes into picture. Next is to test the changes to code without losing the original. So whenever we there is a production app already deployed now, but there is some new change request that we need to do. Suppose we need to change the color of a button. What we will do is we will clone the repository, we will make the changes to it, and then in the local only we can run the project and see how does it look. So that is called test changes to code without losing the original. The original code is still there on the live, it is deployed, it is there in the Git also. We are just making changes to our local copy. Next is revert back to old versions of code. It can be possible like I made some changes and committed it and pushed it, and then something broke on production. So we can easily like revert that commit and get back to the old working state. So this is also where Git helps. Okay. So here are some of the common Git commands that we all regularly use. So first is git init. So git init is mainly used to initialize a Git repository. Basically to initialize the Git. Next is the git clone command. So you can initialize a repository in the cloud provider like GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, etc. And then you can clone that repositories. Or if there is already some repositories in the cloud that is having some code, then you can use the git clone command to clone them. Next is the git add command. So whenever you make some changes to some files, you need to add those files before committing and pushing them. So that is the git add command. Git commit is the command to commit your changes, where you can also write the commit messages, add some tags, etc. to basically notify like these changes will do what things. Next is the git pull command. So like I said, suppose there are multiple developers working. So if some other person made some changes and you want that changes to be in your machine as well, then you use the git pull command. Next is the git push command. So that other person had to push their code first. After that only we can take the pull. Next is the git status command, basically to check whether there are any local changes or whether your local is up to date with remote or it is outdated, to know that. And last one is the git branch, to like create new branches, to switch branches, etc. So these are the common git commands. There are many more commands available, but those are for the advanced level. Okay, so next point comes is the branching strategy. So in Git, branches are like okay, so the whole of Git is known as a tree, and trees are having branches. So like in nature we have trees and we have branches. Similar way in Git also we have trees and we have branches. Branches meaning like suppose there is a main branch and we create a new branch from it. So it looks like a branch. Basically it can have some other code. Okay. So for a the common or most effective branching strategy, there are like following list of branches that we should have. First is the main branch, that is the default branch where everything is initiated. So the initial commit is done on main branch. The project gets started from main branch. Next is the feature branch. So feature branch is like if you are developing some feature, then it should be developed in a feature branch, so that it does not get conflicted with the other tasks in the main, or we can deploy it whenever we want. So when we want to deploy that feature, we can merge that branch into the main. Next is the staging branch. So I generally that is like configured to deploy to the staging environment or the UAT environment. Next is the production branch, same way it points to the production. And last is the hotfix branch. So hotfix branch is like application is already live and there are some issue occurs on production. In that case, we have to like make a fix directly to production, because our staging is having some new features that we don't want to deploy to production. So in that case, we will create a hotfix branch from production. We have that workflow defined as well. Okay. So next is the workflows. So there are mainly two kinds of workflows. First is a normal workflow and another is a hotfix workflow. So normal workflow is nothing but a new task that is assigned to John. So instead of saying some employee every time, I have taken John as our employee. Okay. So normal workflow is like a normal task that we regularly do. And hotfix workflow is like I explained, there is a critical bug on production that needs to be fixed. Okay. So let's see how John will work on a normal workflow. So John is, suppose the task number is 1110 for example. Okay. So John is assigned that task. So what he will do is he will create a new branch from main and name it as feature/1110. So that identifies that this branch contains the code for this task. Task reference can be a Jira task ID, Trello task ID, or any other tool that you are using. So some reference to what that task is. Next, he will check out that branch in the local and he will make some code changes in the feature branch. Suppose it is a long task, then he will go to home at night. So he will come back to office next morning and he will take latest in the main branch. So it is possible like feature 1110, there are some other features which some other developer is developing and he completed that feature in the same day and it is getting merged into the main on the same day. So John needs to take that pull first before starting his work, so that his code is latest and in sync with the main branch. Okay, so he will merge the main branch into the feature branch. He will resolve the conflicts if there are any. So it is possible that the other developer that worked, let's name it LS. LS worked on some file that John was also working on. Then it creates merge conflicts. So what John has to do, he has to resolve those conflicts first and then start his work. Generally what practice we see among developers is they complete the whole feature first and then pull from the main, which is actually a bad practice, because in that case, suppose the feature took 4 to 5 days, then the merge conflicts from 4 to 5 days are like carrying forward, and at the end he has to like resolve all of them all together. So the better practice is to like take a pull daily and then resolve them. So if there are smaller merge conflicts, they are resolved easily. Okay, so once all the changes for the feature branch are done, then he will create a pull request from the feature branch to the main branch. A pull request is simply like a request that you are asking your team leader to saying that my this feature is done, please merge it to the main. So the team leader will review the commit and then merge it. So this was the normal workflow. Next is the hotfix workflow. So in the hotfix, John will like create a new branch from production. In the normal workflow, we create a feature branch from main. In this workflow, we create a hotfix branch from production. So whatever is there in the production, we will take that code and fix the bug in that. Okay, so he will check out that in local. He will make the code changes and then make commits to the hotfix branch. So once those are tested and fixed, he will create a pull request from hotfix to production, because that needs to be merged on production urgently. And he will also create a pull request from hotfix to main branch, so that main branch also gets that bug fix. And similar way, if there are some other developers working on some feature branches, they will come on next day and take a pull from main branch, so that bug will get fixed for them as well. Okay, so now coming to commit messages. What should be the commit messages? The commit message generally identifies if you are committing something, then what changes will it make to the code base. So a simple trick to identify like what should I write as a commit message is this. It can simply be an answer to this question, like if merged, this commit will do what, right? So I have some examples as well. For example, John is implementing the login functionality. So the answer to this question will be, if merged, this commit will add the login functionality. So add the login functionality will be the commit message. In the commit message, we also add some prefixes. Commit prefixes are like little tags that we use to identify what is this commit. So some of the examples are, it can be a feature, like adding a login functionality is a feature. Next is a fix. So if there is some bug fix, like the login was not working, but now users can log in. So it's a bug fix, so we can use fix for that. Next is a chore. So chore is like a task that nobody wants to do, but yet someone has to do it. Like removing some old code or adding some documentation to the logic. Right? So next is the refactor. Like if you are refactoring some code, functionally it does not change anything, but you are simply refactoring the code so that other developer can easily understand it. Next is the docs. So you are making some changes to the documentation of the code. Like for example, in case of APIs, you are updating the API documents, for example. Then you have to add the prefix docs. Next is the style. If you are like changing the coding style, like changing the single quotes to double quotes like that, for example. So that can be noted as styles. Next is the test. If you are like making some changes to test or adding new test cases, automated test cases. Next is the perf. Perf means performance. If you are like updating, improving the performance. Generally, if we are decreasing the performance, then also we should use this tag, but that is generally added as a feature. Okay. So that is the perf. Next is the CI. So if we have CI/CD implemented in our Git, then we can use CI to like there are some changes in the CI files, so workflows or like that. Next is a build. So build means if you are changing some configuration that affects the build part of the Git, of the repo, of the project. And last one is the revert. So basically if you are like adding some feature and then you are reverting that whole feature, then you use the revert. Okay. So here are some samples, like I explained, adding the logging functionality. So first we add the tag in the square brackets, then we add the task number, whatever task number we have. We can get that simply from the feature branch, and we add the message. Next is a fix, like allow user to log in, and like CI, like add a new pipeline for UAT environment. If we like set up a whole new environment, then we need to add CI for that as well. So that is marked as a CI. Okay, so next is the .gitignore file. So gitignore file is mainly used to like hide some files from Git. So we don't always need to like have all the files as backup in Git or all the files committed to Git. So a thumb rule is like any files that can be generated by running some command should not be pushed to Git. The best example that we all know is node modules. So like we can simply regenerate node modules by using the npm install command. So they should not be pushed to Git, right? For example, in case of iOS, there are pods. So we don't need to like push the pods to Git. But there are some exceptions. For example, pod log file, or we have package log or yarn log file. Those files need to be committed. Though they are like auto-generated every time we run the npm install command, we still need to have a track of them, because that identifies like when this code was last working, what were the versions of each dependency. So we should push that. Okay, next is the readme file. So readme file is generally like what we can say, first impression of your repository. Whenever someone is looking at your repository, he or she will look at the readme file only. So a readme file is like a entrance to your home. So in a readme file, there are some things that we should have, like introduction to the repository. What is this repository for? So this should not be an introduction to the whole project, just this repository. What is the role of this repository? Like in projects, we have different repositories for API, Android app, iOS app, web. So if considering API repository, then it should only have an introduction of what is this repo used for. So it should say like this is the API for this project. In case of microservices, each microservice should have an explanation of what that microservice is responsible for. Next is the technical stack. So technical stack meaning what is the technical stack that should be used to run this project or to run this repository. Technical stack then can contain versions or tools used for the development of the project. Like for example, we have the Node version, NPM version, MongoDB version. If we are using VS Code and some plugins of VS Code, then we list them also here. Next is the getting started guide. So getting started guide is like a way for a new developer to know how to run the repository or how to run the project basically. So it should contain all the steps that are needed to run the project. Like if you need to set some environment variables first, you need to at least have these libraries installed. Suppose it depends on some OS level libraries. Like it should have Python installed or it should have Node installed, like that. Then it should, we can add a command for installing dependencies, like how to install dependencies, etc. And after, once the project is run, where can I view the project? So the URLs, if any. or for the apps, I mean it runs in the simulator, so that's fine. Yeah. Next is the deployment part. Suppose I have made some changes to some repository in the API. Now I want to deploy the changes to staging environment. So if I don't know like how is that deployed or whom should I ask if I want to deploy, then there is no use of making those changes. So deployment section should contain the details of how to deploy the API. For app, it should contain the steps to how to create a build of the apps. And the branching strategy that is used in the repository. So the branching strategy we discussed is like a base one. Each project can have its own strategy. So the README file should have that strategy, like what should be the branching strategy that should be followed or that is being followed in the repository. Okay. Now there are some general rules for Git. So make sure you to fetch from main every morning, like we already discussed in the workflow. You should take a pull from the main branch every morning and resolve the conflicts if any. Make sure to push at end of day every day. Okay, so let's take one example of John. Suppose John was working on some task 1110 like we did in the normal workflow, and he went to home, but he was working on an iMac, so he kept his PC in the office. He did not push anything. For example, he is almost done with the feature, he only needs to test it, but he did not push it. At night, his boss calls and says that our office is on fire, please come. So he reaches the office and sees like his machine and other developers' machines are also gone. So that all recovers like in a day or two. After that, the boss asks John like this feature was done, how can we deploy it? Then John says that it was done, but our machine caught fire, so it was lost. So that should not be the case. In that case, John has to like do all of those steps again. So make sure to push at end of day every day. If the task is not completed or like the code is not in a status where it can run, then you should create a temporary branch and push there. So we can use Git as a backup as well. Next is any stale branches should be deleted after a predefined time period. So we create a new branch for every feature, we create a new branch for every hotfix. So those branches will stay there in the, for example, GitHub, those branches will stay in the GitHub. Now suppose I created we are starting a new project and we implemented the login functionality. After 1 year, there is no use of that login functionality branch. Then we should delete them. So basically delete all those stale branches that are no longer relevant. If they are relevant, we can keep them. But there should be some time limit which we should define at the starting of the project. Like we will keep these branches for this much period of time. Okay. So we all know how to like initialize a Git repository or clone a Git repo. But how to remove a Git from a repository? So there is a single line command. We can simply remove the .git folder from our repository and it will remove the Git from our local copy. It does not delete the repository from remote, from GitHub or Bitbucket. It simply deletes it from your local. So what's next? So this was like a basic overview of Git or GitHub. Next, we are exploring GitHub projects. For example, you all know Trello and Jira. So GitHub has launched its own feature for projects, for that project management named GitHub Projects. It directly integrates with GitHub issues and like provides us a board view as well as a table view where we can manage tasks, view insights like how much task is pending. We can manage milestones as well. So we can like if I want to give an update to some client, like how far are we in this milestone, we can simply view the progress on GitHub projects and share that with the client. And GitHub Actions. So GitHub Actions are a feature that allows us to implement CI/CD on GitHub. So basically we can use GitHub Actions to make deployments on our server, to like run test cases, automated test cases, to test whether the code is properly linting or not, like that. So I have kept it in what's next because like we will be having separate talks on this. Okay, so that was the end.